Ave Maria, gratia plena, Maria, gratia plena, Maria, gratia plena, Ave, Ave Dominus, Dominus tecum.
For all the times we heard our Ave Maria outside our window, the church could have excused us from Sunday Mass. Most afternoons, we could sit in our window and watch and hear the funeral processions go by in the gravel road outside a little house in Barahona, next to the biggest cemetery in town. My aunt and uncle had bought the house in the 1950s, and I lived there with them and their granddaughter, Esperanza, who they were also raising. Esperanza was always the most fascinated by these processions. She watched our neighbors come out of their houses and stand along the street. The radios were silenced, the playing children hushed. All the men removed their hats to pay their respect. And Esperanza learned the Ave Maria and softly sang along from the window.
Ave Maria, gratia plena.
Esperanza would watch, and I would watch her. One summer night, she got up from her bed to go to the bathroom, I thought. I watched as she circled her bed and untucked the mosquito net from under the mattress, letting it hang loose. Mosquitoes were a plague in the Dominican Republic, so I was confused by this behavior. But curious behavior was not unusual for Esperanza, and I soon drifted to sleep. When I woke late the next morning, Esperanza's bed was empty. Then I lifted the mosquito net and noticed the bloodstains. Esperanza, are you okay? I heard her footsteps racing from the kitchen.
Leave my deceased alone!
She grabbed the edge of the mosquito net from my hands and carefully examined what was inside. Then I watched her twist the net and squeeze with all her strength.
Aha! You thought you were going to escape, didn't you?
I was stunned. I followed her back to the kitchen where Tia Nellie was preparing lunch.
Mama, do you have my boxes ready?
Nellie pointed to a pile of matchboxes and empty bouillon cube containers on the kitchen table.
How many do you have? I still don't know, but there will be many, many mourners.
She juggled the stack of light boxes back to her bedroom. I noticed both Nellie and Esperanza wore their black dresses. My curiosity drew me back to the mosquito net. I watched as Esperanza shook it. Several dead mosquitoes fell to the floor. She carefully picked up each one and placed it in an empty matchbox, sliding it shut. Then with cellophane tape and toothpicks, she fashioned little crosses and attached them to each box. After Esperanza placed all the dead in the small boxes, she carried them to the kitchen where Nellie continued cooking. Esperanza tipped over one of the wooden kitchen chairs, laid its back to the floor, and carefully positioned each box on the chair back. She then lifted her dress above her knees, knelt on the floor, and slowly pushed the chair across the floor.
Ave Maria.
I watched as she pushed the chair out the front door, onto the porch, and into the front yard. A few of the neighbors stood in the streets outside and watched too.
Esa niña es loca. That's why her grandmother's raising her.
You don't let your daughter play with her?
Ay, Dios mío, no.
Esperanza continued pushing the funeral chair around the corner of the house and toward the backyard with its fruit trees and flowers. My uncle entered the house for siesta and headed for the TV. Tia Nelly scolded him and gestured towards the door.
No baseball now, Sigfredo. Can't you see there's a procession?
He looked out the window and saw Esperanza, who continued her ceremony. He sighed and shook his head.
Ave Maria, Mother of God, pray for us sinners.
Finally, Esperanza parked the chair with the departed next to a lemon tree in the backyard. Under this tree, she began to dig holes, final resting places.
Ave Maria, gratia plena.
Nellie and I had been watching from the kitchen window. Tia picked up a plate of goodies, and we headed for the back porch.
Come on, Sigfredo. Time to pay our respects.
Nellie and I met Esperanza by the lemon tree, and we all crossed ourselves. Sigfredo stepped out onto the back porch.
Sigfredo!
Nellie, Sigfredo, Esperanza, and I were silent. The only sound was of the children playing in the streets. Esperanza blessed the sinners. I grabbed her hand and held it until it was time for lunch.